Well, hey everyone, welcome back. So today I have a really fun video planned for you all. Well, I like to think that all of my videos are kind of fun, but this one is especially fun because we get to go on a field trip. So for those of you that don't know, I live in Austin, Texas, and we have this really cool store here called Austin Creative Reuse, which, if you're not familiar with the concept of a reuse store, it's basically a thrift store for craft supplies. I know. Dangerous. So I have this bad habit of going to check out the store every couple of weeks just to see what I can find. You know that hoarding craft supplies is kind of a hobby in itself. Last week I paid the store a visit with the sole mission to find products and tools that I have never used before, and I tried really hard to find products that I haven't seen anyone else use before either. As you know, I haven't been crafting or making cards that long, so a lot of the older tools are unfamiliar to me. So if you see me using something today that you're like, hey, I have that in my stash, I'm not trying to call you old. It's new to me. So therefore, vintage, right? That's how that works. So anyway, this is my haul. There's quite an assortment of things in here. We have embossing plates, which I didn't know were a thing. The most interesting thing that I'm really excited to try out is the stamp platform. This is a stamp platform from Fiskars. Someone told me recently that it's pronounced Fiskars. How do you pronounce it? If you know for sure, leave it down in the comments. But I didn't even know that they make stamp platforms. I thought they just made cutting tools. So yeah, there's a few fun things in here that I'm excited to dig into. So I don't want to waste too much time with this intro. I want to make sure that we have enough time to play with and explore and test all of these fun new products, or old products. But before we jump into the testing, I just want to mention that if you do find yourself enjoying this video, it would mean a lot to me if you could give this video a thumbs up. And if you find yourself really enjoying it, of course, I would love for you to subscribe and follow along so that you can check out my future content. Now, without further ado, let's get to testing. Okay, so the first tool that I want to test today is this die, which if you're like me and you're kind of new to the card making and crafting world, you might be thinking to yourself, what? That's a die? And yeah, believe it or not, this is how dies used to be manufactured. You might be most familiar with these guys, and these are also dies. However, these are most commonly referred to as wafer thin dies. So just like look how thin these are. And you can fit, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dies in less space than these 3 dies take up. I don't know if you can see that. There's actually an outline of 3 separate dies within this guy. And there's a layer of foam on top, so you can't actually feel the metal die that's inside unless you really start pushing down on it. But anyway, once these wafer thin dies came to the market, these have been phased out a bit because obviously they take up a ton of room. However, these do still get manufactured today, primarily for crafters who work with thicker materials like leather or felt. If you're making felt flowers, for example, or if you're going to make a leather-bound book, you can still find these type of very thick dies just because they are more equipped to cut those thicker materials. Now, I've never used one of these. I've never owned one of these. I picked this one up for $6 from the reuse store, and I was really just curious to use one because I've never used one before. And I think they retail these days for like $20, which is pretty hefty. So, I mean, clearly $6, it's a pretty good deal. And like I said, I've never used one of these dies before, but I think there should be a recipe on this base plate, although it doesn't look like there is. But I guess that actually makes sense because this is about the same thickness as the plate. So I'm guessing this actually takes the place of the base plate. And if that's the case, then I think we just need to grab some cardstock. And I'm thinking maybe just 1 cutting plate. Okay, no, I can already tell that is not correct. That's not going to be thick enough. Okay, I might need to Google how to do this, so I'll be right back.
5 minutes later.
Okay, so I was almost there. It looks like you have to have a cutting plate on the bottom and the top. So I'm going to go ahead and add one of my cutting plates to the bottom. And then I have my die, paper, and then a cutting plate on top. And both of these cutting plates are pretty well loved, but I don't think it should be a problem. And then we'll crank her through. Okay, wow, that was actually really easy. I mean, it's always easy, but that felt especially easy. And yeah, like it's just falling out of the paper. So I can definitely see why people would still be using these. However, am I super grateful that our dies generally are no longer this big? Yes, I absolutely am. I don't think I could store too many of these in my craft room. My craft room is tiny. I think it's like 90 square feet, and it's already overflowing. So I think these are really great to have on hand, especially if you are working with those thicker materials. And I am really impressed with how smoothly it cut. But yeah, I don't know that I'll have many of these in my stash, but I think they're great. And yeah, let's move on to the next product. Okay, so the next tool is definitely a little outside of my comfort zone and outside of my area of expertise. This is a bow maker. I think it's actually called a bow master, at least that's what it says down here on the bottom. And it's supposed to make big, beautiful bows. I figured with the Christmas and holiday season around the corner, it could be kind of a fun toy to have around. However, I think I've made a grave mistake. I will admit that I did some Googling on this one before making this video because I seriously had no idea where to even begin with this. And I couldn't find anything. I found several people selling this thing online, like on eBay, but I couldn't find a single video, instruction manual, nothing on how to use it. So I think we're just going to wing it. And if any of you in the comments know how to use this, I would love to hear from you. So I'm going to grab this ribbon. This is actually some ribbon that I had left over from this past holiday season. And I wish that I had some thicker ribbon because I think that this is really meant for like that big, chunky, like inch thick. Well, and you know what? Never mind. I don't think we have enough ribbon to even make a bow out of this. But never fear. I'm sure I have a stash of more ribbon somewhere else. So be right back. Okay, as expected, I do have more ribbon. I think that I bought several of these on clearance from Joann's last year. That's who makes the place yeah, this is a prettier ribbon anyway, so we looked out. I'm just going to pull a bunch of it out because, yeah, I don't know how much we need. And when I'm looking at this, I assume that these little pegs here at the bottom are meant to hold the ends of the ribbon in place. I don't know, could be wrong. Oh, and I should also mention, this is adjustable. So you kind of move this around, and I think you can untwist these guys and change like how big you want your bow to be. And there's a little arrow on each side. I went ahead and put those both at 8, just because that seemed like a good, I don't know, middle ground. And yeah, I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and put my ribbon down here in this bottom piece. And then all I can think is that you're just kind of supposed to zigzag it back and forth. Okay. And then do I just finish there? Like, do I go and loop it at the bottom, or do I zigzag? I feel like maybe I zigzag all the way down. Because then that would be weird, because the ends, I would have one coming out the bottom and one out the top. But do I even have enough? I don't think I have enough ribbon to do that. So I guess we'll just end it. I'm guessing what I do next is just kind of cut that off. And then I'm assuming I need a little piece to tie the middle together, right? So I'm going to kind of weed this through. Weed. I don't think weed is the right word. And I wonder if I can put this here to make this a little bit tighter. Well, whatever. Y'all, this one's not going to be pretty. I've already accepted it. Okay. And then I think that I just kind of tie it together like this. Does that look right? And then I'm going to double knot it just to be safe. Okay, that looks like an atrocity, but it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and take it off. Oh my goodness. I'm going to snip these little ends off, as if that'll save it. Okay, there's a bow of sorts. Now I think what's really throwing me off is I have one end coming out the bottom and one end coming out the top. But I'm assuming if I had zigzagged it all the way back down, they'd both be coming out the bottom. And then that might have put me in a better position. But from this point, I think you can just kind of tug at it. separate the loops. Again, this might look better if I had a bigger ribbon. I don't know. It's a little sad, isn't it? But it is what it is. Okay, moving on. So this next tool is what kind of inspired this whole video. This is a stamp press by Fiskars. Now, like I said in the intro, someone corrected me recently that this is Fiskars, but I've been calling it Fiskars my whole life, so I might keep saying Fiskars. Now, Fiskars, if you want to reach out and confirm or deny, I might change my language, but I'm just going to keep saying Fiskars. But anyway, I had no idea that they had a stamp platform. You know, Fiskars is known for all things cutting. They have scissors, paper trimmers, rotary trimmers, all kinds of cutting supplies. And I had no idea they had a stamp press. So when I saw this at the store, it immediately just caught me by surprise. And that got me thinking, I wonder what else I can find that I had no idea existed. So anyway, I'm super excited to try this out. It is curious to me that I've never heard of it, and I have several stamp platforms. I've been stamping for a while, so that makes me think that this must have never taken off. But again, I'm new to this world. If you're familiar with this and you used it and you know the history, I would love to hear all about that in the comments. Let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. I almost feel bad. It's never been opened, and I kind of feel like, you know, how many of these sitting out here have never been opened? So, I don't know. We got to do it, right? Okay, so it does come with a little instructional booklet. One thing that the bow maker did not come with. Don't need that. Okay, and so it kind of seems like it's just a hard piece of acrylic plastic. I'm not really sure what it's made out of. It does have a little bit of flex to it, and it's especially thick here in the middle. It looks like there's actually another piece of maybe acrylic or plastic here in the middle. And then the thing that's most interesting to me are these little orange pieces. These are actually pieces of foam, almost like a pool noodle. Do you see that? And that is actually the press part of the stamp platform. So the idea is you adhere your stamp to the grid, and then, you know, you can kind of figure out where you want to place it, and then you press down like so. Now, the thing that immediately comes to mind for me is I feel like it would be difficult to restamp. So for instance, if I stamp and then move it, look at my stamp, I don't like it, I think I need to restamp, I feel like I would struggle to kind of find the exact spot again. But let's give it a try. And to try it, I'm actually going to use the stamp set that I found at the reuse store as well. Picked it up for $2. This is an old Simon Says stamp set called I See You. And this little heart looks to be pretty detailed, so why don't we try that? Okay, we have paper, and I think you can do this either way. I could just add the stamp directly to the platform, or if there were somewhere specifically on the paper I wanted the stamp to go, I could do just like I do with my Misty and place the stamp first. And then I'm actually going to move it down so it's a little more centered for y'all. And then I can place my stamp platform over it. I picked it up. And did you see that? The paper kind of moved with it. So I guess that's another thing to note. Maybe if you were to use this, you might want to use it with a sticky mat or have this, you know, magnetized down to your work surface. And then I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp it up. Now, one thing I'll mention while I'm doing this, I feel it kind of bouncing up and down. Do you see that? As a type A person like me, that makes me a little nervous, just that it's going to break. Anyway, I'm not going to be super precise about this because, well, it's just a white sheet of paper. But actually, I'm going to move it over here so we can have room for a few stamps. So first I'm going to stamp just touching down on the dots. I don't know that it's intended for that, but that's just how I'm feeling. Okay, and I can see, I don't know if you can see, but it didn't stamp fully. So you see that? So I guess the big test now will be, can I go right back over that same spot? And I'm also wondering if it didn't stamp well because I was pushing down on those orange pieces of foam. Okay, excuse my head. I might have to get in here. Okay, I'm looking at it from several angles. And then I'm going to try just pushing directly over the stamp this time. Okay, so as you can see, well, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I did get a better stamped image, but I did not realign it quite right with the previous stamp, which was exactly my concern. Now, that could be user error, but I don't know. I think you just have more accuracy if you have like a hinge or like the stamp wheel, you have the notches that make sure you get in the exact same spot. Now I'm going to try stamping again, but this time pressing directly on the stamp. That way maybe I'll get a good press on my first try. Okay, not bad. There are a couple of areas where it's not super pigmented, but I think it's pretty fine overall. I don't know how I feel about this. I can maybe see why this was not a winner in the stamp platform arena. Because my biggest concern, and where I find the most help with a stamp platform, is when I stamp and then I need to restamp. But in this case, sure, I could go press right back down immediately again. But look, it even moved there because the foam is kind of wiggly. Like, do you see that? It's not hard to accidentally move that back and forth when you're going down a second time. And I can't, after I stamp once it bounces back up, I cannot re-ink the stamp without completely picking it up. And then, pray that I can get it back in the exact same spot. So, I don't know. No shade to Fiskars. I love your cutting products, but I can see why this I had maybe never heard of before. But it was fun. All right, next one. So this is actually another one that I'm really excited about. This is called a Sizzix Textures Plate, and yes, I did have to Google that to figure out what it's called. And essentially this is how you would emboss paper before embossing folders were a thing. So it's kind of similar to the Bigz Die that I showed you earlier, where that was like the die that came before the die that we know today. And this is kind of how we were embossing paper before the embossing folders of today that we all know and love. Now, I'm not sure if Sizzix even still sells these. I haven't seen them for sale anywhere, but when I went to the reuse store, they did have probably 4 to 6 of these kind of in their stash. So I picked up one and thought that we'd give it a try. Now, in all of my Googling around to figure out what this is, I did find that there are a couple of extra plates that I need to use this with my Big Shot machine. So the fact that they still sell these new makes me think that maybe they do still offer these, but frankly, I'm not sure. Okay, so in here we have our silicone mat. So this is just a flimsy, kind of a rubbery, silicone filling mat. And then this is just like a hard plastic. So I think the idea is, well, let me grab my Big Shot machine. And I'm just going to use this paper that we were using to stamp a second ago. But I think the idea is that you put your textures plate down. Well, actually, I think I want to do this texture. So you put your textures plate down, and then your cardstock, and then your silicone rubber mat. And then I think this guy goes on top. It feels like it would be pretty tight. Let's go ahead and try giving it a crank. Oh yeah, that feels like the right sandwich. I'm going to go through twice, just for good measure. Why not? Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, well, that's definitely textured. Do you see that? I think I actually did it backwards. I probably wanted the texture on this side where I haven't already stamped, but that's okay. But yeah, that definitely added some texture. I feel like it's not as defined as if I were to use like a 3D embossing folder, for instance. And that could be two things, right? That could just be that the 3D embossing folders do give you a more heavily embossed look and feel. Or maybe my sandwich was just a little light. Like if I added an extra layer of cardstock, maybe I would get a deeper impression. So let's go ahead and try that actually. So this time I am going to put my cardstock back down. I'm going to do the same sandwich, except I'm going to add a piece of cardstock on top just to make it a little thicker. And let's see. It may not even want to go through. Nope, it caught it, so we should be good. And then I'm going to double roll it again. Okay. Well, we definitely flattened this guy back out. But what we're interested about is how this guy came out. It's honestly still about the same level of impression. And I guess that's just how the texture plate is. There's nothing wrong with it. I do think that the 3D embossing folders that we use today probably give you a more defined impression. But honestly, there's nothing wrong with going a little subtle every now and then either, right? Now, I also would say I think the 3D embossing folders and the 2D embossing folders are a little easier to use. You don't necessarily need these extra pieces. However, I do like the surface area of these textures plates. I mean, that is much larger than an A2 size card, which most of the embossing folders you get today are A2 size. So I like that you can emboss a larger surface area using this. I also like that it's kind of a 2-for-1. I noticed that on all of the textures plates that were in the store, you had one design on one side, then you could flip it and have a second design on the other side. So I do like that they're all kind of a 2-for-1. All right, let's move on. So the last tool that I wanted to test out is this ShapeCutter from Fiskars. I'm not sure what is up with all of the unopened Fiskars products that I found, but again, both of these were found at the Creative Reuse store unopened, practically brand new. This one even includes 2 extra blades, so I mean for $6 you can't beat that, right? And I think Fiskars might actually still make these products. I'm not entirely sure, but again, it's new to me and it's found at the reuse store, so I'm calling it vintage. Okay, bad joke. Anyway, so I think the idea is this little handheld device thing has a blade inside of it. And from what I understand, you can buy these templates that Fiskars makes, and you can put the template over your paper, and then you can kind of use this device to trace over the template. It'll cut that shape out of the paper that you have underneath your template. So this particular template is for an envelope, which I thought was kind of, fitting and a fun thing for us to try out. So I'm gonna go ahead and open these guys up. Okay, so I've opened this and I'm not any less confused really. But I do see that I believe this is the cutting template itself. And then it also came with this, which they're calling their scoring guide. So I guess that this is just going to tell me where to score the envelope. Now, I guess that'll be helpful. I don't know. But let's see. So we have instructions actually. So cut using your shape cutter and the envelope 1 shape template. Cut out the envelope. Note, secure paper to template with double-sided stick tape to prevent paper from slipping. That's a good tip. Place the scoring guide on top of the envelope you just cut out. Align the cutout's envelope with the shape outline on the scoring guide. Score, hold down both the cutout and the scoring guide. Okay, so honestly, it sounds pretty straightforward, but I am going to go ahead and grab just a cutting pad so that I'm not obviously cutting directly onto my glass mat. And then lastly, we just need a paper about this size, right? And for this, I am just using an 85-pound cardstock, so nothing too crazy thick. And it did mention that we should try taping the template to the cardstock. Now, part of me doesn't want to do that, but I will listen to the instructions. But I am just going to use some tape runner. I find it's pretty easy to get tape runner off of plastic. Okay, so that is securely fastened. And then this guy, I have no idea how this works. It looks like there's a lid. Oh, yep, there's a lid. And then I'm guessing if you push down, oh no, there's a little arrow here that says open. So I'm guessing you have to, ooh, that was a nasty noise. I wonder if I have to put a blade in it first. That would make sense, right? Okay, let me read the instructions real quick.
5 minutes later.
Okay, so I did some research, aka read the instructions, and I did get a blade in here. It was actually super easy to put the blade in, and I found out that this little cover I think is actually just to store extra blades. So it doesn't really do anything in terms of replacing the blade, so don't get distracted by that. And I think I'm ready to go. So it did say in the instructions to test it first. So I think I might try testing how it cuts. Well, that felt pretty good. Okay, I think I'm just gonna go for it. So I think I'm just gonna choose this side and then put the blade up next to the template. And then I think we just kind of move it around, I guess. I don't know. It feels a little unnatural, but I'm sure anything does it first, right? So I feel like I'm having difficulty because I'm not sure if the blade is supposed to, you're probably not supposed to touch this. I'm not sure if the blade rotates on its own. It actually feels like it does. So I think maybe I was over complicating things. Let me try this again. No. That didn't work quite right. I don't know, y'all. I feel like maybe I'm overcomplicating things. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm having trouble with these corners, definitely. I think the other areas are pretty smooth sailing, but when you're coming around these like inside corners, I'm not sure how to do that very smoothly. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna try the heart. No, that's not right. Okay, I feel like this is probably user error. That didn't really work either. Let me try doing it free-handed, because that is also a thing. Apparently you can do this free-handed. So I'm going to try making a, what should I try to do? I might try to do an R. It feels a little ambitious, but let's try it. Oh man, can you see that? I mean, I can definitely see the vision. I think it's definitely like a user error thing. And with some practice, I could probably figure this out. But I will say it feels completely unnatural to me on first try. Now, I don't know, y'all. This one may not be for me. Let's try to do like a star. And I'm going to I'm just going to try to freehand a star and see what happens. Okay, I didn't make a perfect star, but I mean, it was pretty close. And I mean, that's pretty cool. I feel like with some practice, if you get used to this, you can probably cut stuff out pretty quickly. Like, I'm gonna do a heart. Oh, not pretty. But again, I think with some practice, other pro tip, you definitely need to like hold your paper in place with something tacky probably. But I mean, it's pretty cool. I think if you get the hang of it, and especially if you get the hang of these templates, you can probably whip some cuts out pretty quick, but definitely not the best example of using this tool. I'm not going to write it off because I think it's user error. But for me, I will probably not be using this much, but I do appreciate the tool and think that it's a really cool idea. Alright guys, that includes my vintage craft tool haul. Now, if you enjoyed this, I actually do have a couple of other tools that I picked up that I didn't include in this video, simply because I don't want to make the video too long for you guys, but if you enjoyed this and you'd like to see more, like I said, I'm always going to the reuse store, so I'm sure I can make another one of these videos for you guys. I do think it's fun just to kind of play with some of the tools, or toys, as I like to call them, that I'm maybe not as familiar with. And for those of you who have used these tools or even have these tools in your craft room, I hope that this was just a fun walk down memory lane and brought back some good memories for you. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give the video a like. That really helps me out, and I would love it as well if you wanted to subscribe to my channel and stick around for more videos like this.